a story.
Just a story. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, Sister Ramona. Okay. Uh, yeah. So let's dive into the story. Question number one. Any one of you can take. Will you please, Melody?
Okay. So why does David decide to go to Gath? Well, he goes because he wants to hide from Saul. Israel is getting too small to hide in, it seems. Who follows David when he goes over to Achish, son of Maok, king of Gath? 600 men, all of the men's families, all of David's, well, David just had two wives at that point, Hinoam of Jezreel and Abigail of Carmel. Where does David settle? In Gath with Achish. Later we see that it looks like he was actually living in the palace area. I'm not sure where his men and their families were living, but at least he was living with Achish. What does Saul do when he heard that David had fled to Gath? He stopped searching for David. So that's all I.
Yeah. Thank you. So we see something strange here, right? Especially what happened in chapter 26, and the next verse is like this. Don't you feel strange?
Yes, suddenly start with but.
Yeah, but it starts with but. It's a big but. Yeah. So how can such thing happen? Um, because just now he has experienced great deliverance, and even Saul said, "I'm not going to kill you," and he experienced. I mean, if you list down, the number of time David has already been delivered by God is at least 12 times now. Okay, sometime God, you remember at Rema, God came down and the Holy Spirit zapped Saul for 2 nights or 3 nights, something like that, right? He couldn't kill him. So many other time. I mean, just previously, Saul was put into sleep. The entire army was put into sleep, and God did it. And David knows it. 12 times he has been delivered by God. After that, how could you make such a decision? I mean, by saying this, I'm making it clear that it was really not a good decision, because David is going to live in compromise. David is going to live in deception. David is going to live in fear. This decision is out of fear, right? And neither these things are in the will of God. Fear, compromise, and deception cannot be the will of God. So how can, after 12 wonderful deliverance, David make such a decision? So the verse 1 says, but David thought to himself. Uh, do you have another version of the Bible? I'm reading NIV. So other than NIV, does any one of you have any other version?
NKJV.
Couldn't hear, Sister Ramona.
NKJV. Can you hear
Yeah,
now?
please read the first. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So this is the first verse. Hello.
Yeah,
The
please read.
first verse. And David said in his heart,
Yeah,
now
the
I shall
first part of.
perish someday by
Yeah,
the hand of Saul. There is
yeah,
nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines. And Saul
Yeah.
will despair of me
Yeah.
to seek me any more in any part of Israel, so I shall escape out of his hand.
So it says David said in his heart, right? Is that uh,
Yes,
is it what? Yeah.
Yes.
David said in his heart. The NIV does not make more clear. I mean, it says David thought to himself with a similar kind of language, but David said in his heart. This is what he did not. I mean, uh, did he discuss with anyone? Did he ask the Abiathar, the priest who used to bring Urim and Thummim and give him direction what God wants him to do? No. Did he
no.
even voice what he was thinking? Did he even speak out? No. It is a conversation in his own heart, and so that is what is going on. I mean, he's not seeking God. He's not asking his team or his elders. He's not asking his co-workers, not even his spiritual wife. I believe she could have given she was wise and beautiful. She could have given a good advice to go or not go, or do something. No discussion, no seeking God, no asking God. It is just a conversation in his own heart. That is the most dangerous thing, to listen to our heart. Okay. People tell us, follow your heart. What does the Bible say about our heart?
Corrupted.
Desperately wicked.
Desperately wicked. Yeah. In the fall, in the curse, something very strange happened. The heart which was created to love God, trust God, and follow God's will became, as you said, desperately wicked. I mean, eager to do something wrong, eager to go against God, eager to, lead us in a wrong direction. That is what our heart is capable of. And that is what happened when he said in his heart, or listened to his heart's what his heart said to him. He relied on his feelings. He relied on his self thinking. I mean, we can say many bad things about David, but don't you think this is many a time our own situation? Many a time this is our own situation. I mean, we can sit here today and look back what David did so many years ago, and we can say, how could David do that? But isn't it what we do many times after so many deliverance? And think of it. Melody, can you please read chapter 22 verse 5, Samuel?
22 verse 5.
Yeah.
Okay. But the prophet Gad said to David, "Do not stay in the stronghold. Go into the land of Judah." So David left and went to the forest of Heret.
Yeah. What was God's direction for David?
Not to stay in the stronghold,
And
go into the land of Judah.
stay in the land of Judah. God had a place for him. God had a clear direction for him. Right? If God said stay in Judah, then he should wait until God says, now it is time to move out of Judah, go somewhere else. I mean, this is what is. Is my voice breaking because of my internet? Okay, some of you saying yes, some of anyway. So this is the problem. Sometimes we interpret God's promises and God's direction according to our own feelings. Okay, God said stay in Judah, but he did not say stay forever. So now I can make a choice. Now I can move ahead. I can use my brain now. Why should I just rely on a very unclear direction? God said stay in Judah. He didn't mention how long. So now I can take my own decision. Right? This is how the heart deceives us. Right? And so when God said stay in Judah, he really meant it. And God knew that it is going to be difficult. God knew that he has to move from place to place. God did not say it will be nice for you, comfortable for you, smooth for you. So, but at the same time, I mean, when God said go, he also, I mean, it's not spoken, but we know, I mean, based on God's nature, that if he say go there, he takes, it becomes his responsibility to provide for us and protect us. Isn't it? So what is better? To be in the will of God in spite of the place where we are is the place of difficulty and danger and suffering and tribulations, or move to a place which seems better according to my own understanding. Which is better? Of course, right? Yeah.
But sometimes we don't think that.
Yeah.
We look
Good,
at the
good.
situation and we
Yeah.
want to do it our way because our way makes more sense to our heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point, Melody. We see through situations. We see through what our heart sees, what our feelings and what our reasoning present to us as the facts and figures are so real, right? These days, when you watch news or all these things are going on in the world, they are so real. I mean, they affect us. I mean, it is so difficult to believe in God's promise that God is good, that God will protect me, that I have plan and purpose. I should stay where God has called me. I should do what God has called me. Rather, it looks like everybody is moving on. Why should I stay in the same place? This is, this is not David's problem alone. This is each one of our problem. We try to interpret things. We become great prophets ourselves, and we prophesy about our own future and say, I know what my life is going to be. Let me move ahead. And then we also say that, God, I'm going this way. Please follow me. Does that make sense? We say to God, come follow me. Jesus says, come follow me. We say to Jesus, Lord, come follow me. I have made a decision, Lord.
I'm not saying, but
Yeah, I mean,
result
that's what eventually, what it means is, God, I have decided this. Please join my team, or just follow me. Just bless me, whatever I have thought to be. Yeah. And at that time, yes, of course, life is difficult. Life is full of, Jesus never said you become Christian and your life will be full of, absence of trouble and all kind of, you will only enjoy life. Yes, of course, we'll enjoy life. But Jesus said, you become Christian and your trouble begins from there. Your real trouble begins from there. He said, in this world, you will have tribulations. But he also said, but I have overcome it, and you will also overcome it. You will have, but the tribulation will not overcome. He said, you will not be always in the midst of tribulation. You will be always defeated, and your heart will be, troubled, and all this. He said, I give my peace to you, the peace that the world cannot give, not the kind of peace that the world gives. Meaning, the world peace is absence of problem, absence of war, absence of trouble, absence of difficulties. That is what the world understand as peace. But Jesus' peace is in the midst of all the troubles and difficulties and worries and struggles and seemingly but it is so difficult to trust in Jesus because it is so easy to trust in our heart. Okay. So anyway, this is the, if we don't get this point, other things doesn't make sense. This is the main point why David took this direction, and I mean what went wrong here. Okay, so the fear and struggle. I mean, how long you will move from place to place? How long you will? I mean, you don't have proper food. You don't have a proper supply of food. You have to depend on others or go and raid somewhere and get your food. It is not easy to take care of 600 men. Means, as Melody said, around 4,000-5,000 people. It is not easy to take care of families like this when you are moving from place to place, and on top of that you are being pursued and your life is in danger. It really not easy, really difficult. I mean, if we put in David's shoe, it is really I mean big trouble already. We can judge David and say he did such and such, but even in a small trouble we jump and we do stupid things. But he is really in a big trouble, but still it was not God's will for him. Okay, and then he says, my NIV says the best thing I can do, but just now Sister Ramona read, there is nothing better for me. That is another conclusion he had. There is nothing better for me. Am I right, Sister Ramona? NKJV.
Yes, brother. There's nothing better for me than that I should
Yeah.
be
I mean, does that align with God's promises for David's life? There is nothing better for me.
No.
What was God thinking about David staying in Judah in the midst of all the difficulties? What was God thinking about David? God was thinking this is best for David, right? This is best. This is how I can raise up a man after God's own heart. This is I mean, I have a plan for David, but I also have a direction I have already decided for David to go through, and that is how I can raise him up as a man after God's own heart. This is the best for David to be, or this is best for David. David says, there is nothing better for me. That is how what God thinks about us and our life and the direction of our life is totally sometimes opposite to what we think about our life and our current situation and the future direction of our life. Nothing better for me. So this goes wrong when we stop listening to God and rather, look at the situation. When we look at the situation and when we start counting the cost and how difficult life is and how I have to manage everything on my own. So when we stop looking at God's promise, God's ability, the testimony of God's deliverance, and rather I look at only the future and how difficult, how impossible, how hopeless, then decision becomes like this. And that is what happened in David's life, and it happens in our life, including myself. So what should we do? Lesson that we can learn, maybe we can talk toward the end of this study. Okay, let's go to question number 2. Shepherd Robert.
How does David come to live in Ziklag?
Yeah.
So, David said, then David said to Achish, if I have found favor in your eyes, let a place be assigned to me in one of the country towns, that I may live there. Why should your servant live in the royal city with you? So this is another thought of David, that he said that why should I stay with you in this royal city? So please assign me a different place where I should live. So that is what David thought of. Yeah, there may be so many reasons why David asked in this way. One maybe he's having a a large family, maybe so many confusion and all this thing. And as we would see in the in the next verses that he had a plan in his mind. I think it's not on a sudden he had that plan, but he thought of all these things before going to Philistine country. He had a complete picture of that, and so to fulfill his what was going on in his heart, so he told that is how he came to Ziklag and asked Achish to provide him a special place. So how long does David live in Philistine territory? That is 1 year and 4 months he lived there. Which peoples do David and his men raid? So they raided Geshurites and Girjites and the Amalekites. These are the places. These are the people whom if you remember, told Abraham and Moses and all. God told that in the promised land you would be having these people around you, and they had to be cleared off. And the promised land. These are the same people that come out of these. So, what does David do when he attacks? This is very interesting. Whenever David attacked an area, he did not leave a man or a woman alive, but took sheep and cattle, donkeys and camels, and all clothes. Then he returned to Achish. So he completely destroyed the whoever were living there, and took over all the clothes and whatever properties they had, and brought them to men and women. Human beings he just destroyed, but their property, cattle, and all other things he brought with him. So the reason we could see the next verse that he don't want to leave anyone, so that they could go and spread the news that David is attacking the Philistine people. So that's why he did so. So yeah, so in connection to the previous verses, we could see that David is really mad. So this is the second time he's going to the same place. Gath. First time and he he deceived himself like he is mad, but this time he's really mad, I think. So he's acting like a madman. So I thought of when I was reading this passage, so many things came to my mind. Why David did so? Was it really necessary for David to do? He's coming out of a wonderful deliverance. He could witness a wonderful deliverance. In the previous passage, and immediate after the previous passage, he's going into in such a thing which is against God's will. Yes, that is something to be questioned and something to be thought about. But that is the reality. Yes, that happens. So I thought of yes, whatever decisions I'm taking, is it really? It's sometimes very difficult. Sometimes very, very difficult. Either whether I should go for that job, whether I should go to that place to live. There are certain things that it's very difficult to take a decision. Sometimes, though my heart says no, that is not, but has to take. There is also. I was putting all this and I wonder till the end, like whether David did a right thing or wrong thing. Yes, David had close experience with God. So do we, or I. So many things happen in my life, and I could experience so many God's deliverance. But still, sometimes it happens that I should not go and should not take that one, but still I take. That is what deception I could understand. And it is not easy to come out of that deceptions. It needs a lot of struggle in prayer with God. And yes, that is what the trust comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So David, initially he was in the royal palace, but I think he as you said, considering his plan and his thoughts, what he would be doing there and how he would be surviving there, I think this is the best he could think, that let all our people live in one place together, and so that it will be easy to manage ourselves, easy to hide my plan. I mean, if he's close to the palace, it will be difficult for him to do what he was doing and still be able to hide from Akis. So we can think that he really calculated a lot, uh, what he's going to do, how he's going to do, and how he will manage to do what he wants to do. But as you said, this is an interesting thing, that he went back to Akis. I mean, knowing that earlier he had already been exposed as a lunatic. Uh, why he went to Akis? What made what? And I'm sure he knew that he would find some favor from Akis. So what could be the reason? It's not mentioned there, but what could be the reason? I want others also to just pitch in. I mean, share your insight. So, what could be the reason why David thought that he would find favor from Akis? And it happened like that, right? I mean, uh, this guy Akis was not upset or not angry. He gave him shelter. He was willing to take him in.
Maybe like one is to give a direction to his plan. So it is very near to Judah and Jerusalem. That is one thing maybe, and definitely enemy of enemy is a friend type. I could see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that maybe all this thing he brought to into mind and they planned out.
Yeah. I think that's true. I mean, anybody has any other opinion about that? Why he chose to go back to Akish?
Probably he wanted to like get away from uh, constant watch of the Philistines, the authorities basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So enemy of enemy is a friend. So I mean, it is clear that Akish was an enemy of Saul, and later on chapter 28 we say that Akish is now going to attack Israel, which is still under the leadership of Saul. And Akish knows that David has defected from Saul. David is an enemy of Saul, and in that moment of time, in that culture, and even now, to go and ask help from Akish, meaning, I mean, you are burning the bridge. You are never going to come back to Israel, because you are going to join with your enemy. I mean, in any culture, in any situation, for David to go and join with Akish is like burning the bridge. I mean, at least for Akish's point of view, David has calculated he would come back and he would manage, and that may be the case. But Akish would definitely think that if this guy is coming back to me and he wants to join with me and fight against Israel together with me, then he's never going back to Israel. And that is exactly what happens in chapter 28. Akish says, David, we are attacking Israel. I'm sure you are joining with me. And David says, yes. Of course, he doesn't go ultimately, but I think that is what was in. So, and Akish also knows that David has killed a champion like Goliath. So Akish knows David would be able to kill Saul if necessary. Okay. So a lot of politics, strategy, and all these game plan is going on. And David is taking advantage of what he could. Akis is trying to take advantage of what he could. This is what the world is like. Everybody is thinking from their point, what I can get, what can I get out of the other person. Okay, so this is what godless world does. I mean, how can I exploit someone for my own benefit, or for my own leadership, or whatever. Okay? Everybody in the godless world, it is only the Christians or only Jesus people who want to what? Wash others' feet and sacrifice themselves to build up others. Otherwise, the world is never, never serving or building up others. It is always about how to build up myself. How can I exploit someone's strength to build up myself, my company, my leadership, or my position, or my, all of you, I'm sure you know. I mean, especially in the offices, what happens is every boss tries to exploit the junior and take all the credit for himself. Okay. Do all the hard, and the boss will say, okay, you did it. And then he will go and present to his boss and say, I did it, everything. It is the world. I mean, it is the world without God. Fighting for every possible piece of crumb, for money, for power, for fame, for everything that the world can offer. But the value system of Jesus is totally different, of course. What can I sacrifice? How can I lay down my life? What can I do to build up someone without counting the cost? Anyway, so here Aki's calculation is that, and then David finds favor, and it happens. Akis allows David to settle down in Ziklag. Ziklag become a place, and so on that day Akis gave him Ziklag, and it has belonged to the kings and Judah ever since. So obviously, Akis is making some adjustment. He is giving something, right? But in expectation, he's expecting a big return from David. That is also part of the world, right? They give us something, and they expect everything from our life, our time, our dream, our family time, our joy, our peace, everything from us. This is again how the world works. Okay, for some 1,000 rupees, I mean, the company or the boss or the wherever we work, the organization, they want to maximize, take away everything from us. That is what. So he gave a piece of land, but then he expects a lot more from David than what he gave. So we should not think that it was a big thing for Akis to give Ziklag. So David lived in Philistine territory a year and 4 months. The same principle you can apply also to Satan. When we compromise with Satan, Satan offers us something temporarily, right? Some benefit, some joy, some entertainment, some pleasure, something. And in return, what Satan wants from us is to become his slave forever, right? Can you read chapter 28, verse 2, the last part? Chapter 28, verse 2, the last part.
Akish replied,
Yes.
very well. I will make you my bodyguard for life.
Bodyguard.
Bodyguard, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Bodyguard.
Yeah. Also, can you read today's chapter only, chapter verse 12, the last part. The last part of verse 12 from today's chapter
He
27.
will be my servant forever.
He will be my servant forever. Forever. Think about that word. Forever. In chapter 28, verse 2 also, for life. That is what Satan's plan is. I'll give you something, some small thing, but in return, I expect everything from you for life, forever. Okay. And then we see this thing going on. David goes, and David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites, Girgashites, and the Amalekites. In the bracket, it says, from ancient times, these people had lived in the land extending to Shur and Egypt. So they were very ancient people living there, and they were supposed to be cleaned from there. And as Shepherd Robert mentioned, they were Israel's enemies also. So whenever David attacked an area, he did not leave a man. If you remember, God had given a direction to Saul to finish everyone in the Amalekites, even their animals and everybody, including women and children. I mean, it's difficult to understand God's judgment, but we know that we trust that God's judgment is perfect and there is nothing unholy or unkind about it. Everybody gets exactly what he or she deserves. So let's not go into that discussion of why every man, every children, everything to be killed. But the point here is David is doing something that Saul left unfinished, or even the Moses and Joshua left unfinished. They were supposed to do this, and then they let them leave, and they did not occupy the land. It was the will of God to occupy the entire land. God said, cleanse up this land and take it for yourself. This is going to be my inheritance. But for whatever reason, I mean, they were happy with whatever they got. They didn't want to continue fighting. They wanted to live in peace. They wanted to, let them leave. I mean, as long as they don't attack us, as long as they're not a threat to us. But ultimately, they become threat, and they have been in enemies. And God's will was to clean the land from these ancient enemies of Israel. So whenever David attacked an area, he did not leave a man or woman alive, but took sheep and cattle, donkeys and camels and clothes. Then he returned to Achish. So in a way, David is doing something which God would have wanted him to do, but not in this way. I mean, lies, he's deceiving Achish. So he's doing something, but it is not really in the perfect will of God. Okay. So, so I'm thinking sometime we can do something for God, but I mean, not necessarily that is the perfect will of God. We can say I'm serving God and I'm doing something for God, but that may not be necessarily perfect will of God. But I'm not judging anyone or myself. We all are, many a time driven by situation, as Shepherd Robert also mentioned. Sometime we take jobs, or sometime we take up things out of compulsion, out of difficulties, or to survive, or things like that. So we all are, victim of that kind of fear and difficulties. So he's doing something, yes, what God had planned to do, but maybe not in this way, in a more honorable way where God would receive the credit. Here, nobody is receiving the credit except for David in his own heart, or David's people are thinking David is doing something good, but God is not receiving the credit. God is not involved in the battle. I don't know. I mean, I cannot say that for sure. So this is the kind of fruit that we are not sure whether God is pleased with it, whether God is receiving glory and honor from it. Okay. So let's go to last question.
Before we go to last question, I have a question. So the Amalekites, the Gerzites, the Geshurites, these people, were these people leftovers of what the Israelites were supposed to have kicked out of the land, gotten
Yeah.
out of the land? So David is kind of going back to Joshua and Caleb time and taking care of what was supposed to have been done at that time, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is why in the bracket it is say they are from ancient times. They are the permanent dweller. Even when Joshua was bringing the people, these were the people already living, and they were never displaced, or they were never removed from the land. But they were supposed to be removed. They were supposed to be displaced from the land. And Joshua and his people were supposed to fully occupy the land, but that did not happen. And later on, they let them live there, and now David is cleaning them up. Last question, Brother Michael.
Hey, brother. What does David say to Achish when he's questioned about where he has been? Then Achish would say, "Where have you made a raid today?"
Yeah.
And David would say, "Against the southern area of uh, 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 Jeremielites, or the southern area of the Kenites."
Yeah.
What does David do in order to conceal the truth? So I said, David would save neither man nor woman alive. News to Gath, saying, "Lest they should inform on us, saying, Thus David did." What does Achish think about David? So Achish believed David, saying, "He has made his people Israel utterly abhor him. Therefore, he'll be my servant forever."
Yeah. So here we see. So first we saw David's fear, decision out of fear. Then he's living a compromised life because he's not in the will and plan of God. And now we also see deception. Okay. He's deceiving Achish. And all of us know, when you tell one lies, we need to tell 1,000 other lies to hide that lie, hide that one lie. So life is miserable when we try to and when you are deceiving a powerful person like Achish, who has every possibility to find out the lie, then you can think of the mental the mental condition of David, right? It is the most terrible thing to happen in any person's life is to tell a lie and to try to manage that lie. The most difficult thing, and it is not a small lie. Routing out a complete nation and then trying to hide it from Achish is so. Later on, we'll see in chapter 28, Achish leaders, none of them trust David. I don't know how Achish was really, kind of easily deceived by David. But none of the other leaders of Achish, his commanders, none of them trust David. For them, David is a strange character, never to be trusted. Earlier also they said, this guy is acting, he is actually David, but Achish said, let go, man. If he's David, let him be David. Even if he's acting like a crazy man, maybe he's crazy, or why should I bother about him? Somehow this Achish fellow had some trust in David. I mean, some level of trust in David. We don't know why. Maybe because he thought he could use David, or something was there, but we don't fully understand. So that is the situation. And David is like, if we look at David's word, he does not say where did you go raiding today? David would say, against the Negev of Judah. I mean, Judah is there, but Negev of Judah is not necessarily the people of Judah are living there. I mean, it's southern boundary of Judah, as Shepherd Robert mentioned. And then against the Negev of Jeramil, or against the Negev of Kenite. So he would not tell the whole truth. So it is kind of truth, half truth, but ultimately it is lie. It is ultimately lie. Okay. And it does not give any glory to God. It does not give any credit to God. It is not just a lie in front of a man. It is a lie in front of God. The God who has anointed him to be the king of a nation. I mean, the God who has so much invested in him. It does not really give any glory to God. So there is no justification of lie. In Christian life, I am also sometime I have spoken lies and try to manage situation, but it really doesn't glorify God. We think, okay, let's manage the situation. This is a crisis. I mean, let it pass. I will tell a lie. How does it become but it really, we know in our heart and we get convicted that it really doesn't serve any purpose. So that is the situation. He's in deception, he's lie. And then Achish is convinced of his lies and says, and Achish trusted David and said to himself. Now, can a servant of God deceive to win the trust of someone? Okay. I mean, look at from other point of view. We can be in serious compromise, okay, as a man or woman of God, and we can present ourselves to someone who we are supposed to serve, or someone who is supposed to help, and then we pretend to be a holy person. I'm telling you the ultimate truth. There is nothing to hide in my life. I'm a man of God. I'm a woman of God. I mean, you can trust me completely. And then inside of our heart, there is darkness. There are sins. There are guilt that are residing in our heart. And that is exactly what is happening. We can win the trust, but we can never win the soul, because God is never pleased in it. Or even if that person may trust in us and believe in the message that we give, but then God is never happy or glorified with that, because it is based on lie. Jesus is truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Everything has to be based on the foundation of truth, foundation of love and truth. The moment we deceive someone, it is not just truth is, I mean, we are not loving that person in reality. So truth and lies, lies and deception are really not for people of God. And here again we see David has gone to that extent. And Achish is thinking, now this guy is my servant for his whole life. So that is what exactly, when we compromise, what might Satan be thinking? When we compromise, when we believe, when we deceive, or when we, not in the will and plan of God, but we think we are in the will and plan of God, what might Satan think about us? I got him. I can expose your lies at any time. Okay. You pretend to be a man of God. You pretend to be a preacher or Bible teacher or a prophet or something. And yes, we may have the gift, but if the compromise is inside of us, Satan, whispers in our heart, I got you. Any moment I will expose you. You are my servant now. You obey me. You tell 10 other lies to hide it. So this is the kind of things that we can learn from this chapter. So for the next 5 minutes, we'll finish early today. There are not many questions and not many verses, but for next 5 minutes, I I want each of us to tell, I mean, what we can learn from this lesson, and what is God's will for us, and how can, I mean, we all know God's will, so we need not, sometimes when we say God's will, it looks like read the 10 commandments again. So we all know the 10 commandments. So not about that, but how can we overcome this type of situation in our life? It is real. I mean, we'll be forced to tell lie. We'll be forced to choose things that are not in the plan of God. How can we overcome? Because if you look at Revelation chapter 2 and 3 for the 7 churches also, Jesus is saying continuously, overcome, overcome, overcome. How can we overcome? Yeah. So please feel free and share whatever you think. How can we be overcome?
Can I just say, before we go into that, so
Please.
one more thing I just wanted to add on. Yes, when we see just what you said, just to add on to that, that's how Satan accuses. When we become, we make him our master. So we could see here in this passage that God could have turned the situation against David. And, God, showing His grace to David. That is one more thing. I just wanted to. It just came to my mind that how much God is showing grace to David. Yes, David went against God, but as you said, Satan could have taken that thing and expose or accuse or something. But God is taking everything upon Himself and turning the situation to fulfill some of His will also. The incomplete things that had to be done, that is going to be completed. So how God can turn our wrong decisions and wrong steps, not to accuse us, but to some extent help us to bring glory to His name. That is what just came to my mind, and sharing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Please feel free to share. Sister Ramona, Sister Sabina, Brother Solomon. How do we overcome fear, compromise, deception? Sarah. You're sitting here, so it's not only for those people who are on the screen.
Okay. Through David's story,
Yeah.
really I start to think how David really cannot compare with one of us. He had a lot of experience with God, but still he's doing this kind of all,
Yeah.
which we are doing. So that is first of all make me surprised, and so once again think our life is really daily life. So daily really we trust Jesus, because past what I did, that is cannot make me having faith. So really daily life we should remember Jesus, really pray.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Sister Sabina, you are saying something?
Right. I agree with Brother Pastor Robert was saying, because I think for me, like, it's God's love is so much for us that God prefers not seeing the wrong but seeing the right. In David's case, God knew all this about him, but yet his love for him was so much that He just helped him to go through without being, no destruction was brought. He was successful in his endeavor. And I believe that is because his love for David was so much. You know, God's love, he's a God of love. And it is that love that makes him, even with us, I think we don't deserve anything, but he loves us so much that he just lets us go through even times when we are wrong. And, you know, he will show the way, the path, the correct way, and bring us back. Hopefully, we should come back too.
Yeah.
I just said that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's a good point. Yeah. God is, God's love is, and God's plans are not restricted by our weaknesses. Refine us, he can still purify us, and he can still bring to our own destiny. I mean, David in the book of Acts, I think chapter 12, Apostle Paul says, David served God and fulfilled all his purposes in his life. Okay, so we know David's life had some serious blots, serious spots that are not really glorifying God, but God can still fulfill all the purposes of our life. That is infinite. I mean, power of God, infinite love of God, infinite patience of God. That is marvelous. We should really think about that, and that should motivate us to come out of our compromises. So that's what I understand from Sister Ramuna, Sister Sabina and Shepherd Roberts' answer.
You know what? Just something very practical to my life. I just wanted to share in one line. You know, I remember how difficult it is to be deceived by Satan. Yes. You know, I remember in 2014, I believe, the organization I was working, you know, a lot of things. There were a lot of travel and all these things, and you know, there were chances to make a lot of money. In the way that I can put 10 to 10 instead of 20. Sorry, 20, 10. Yes, in place of 10, I can put 20 and make some money for myself. And yes, one of my senior, he told me that, yes, why you are writing the exact thing? You know, you have every opportunity to write 10 to 20. So instead of 10, you write 20 and saying something. And that person supposed to be the authority who signs, then it is approved. And I did something wonderful, like you know, where he's supposed to sign, he's telling me. So it is so wonderful. I did, yes, I did, and I gained some money. You know, after 2 years, that frequently somehow I did not, I forgot sometime. But after 2 years, I was getting one message and supposed to deliver in the church in Odisha. That was in Delhi, now in Odisha. So I was, preparing that message. It just struck me. Did I do the right thing? Yes, not. And I was delivering that Revelation chapter 2, and it really struck my heart. Really, it was will of God. So being a servant of God, I should have done that one. I should have given him something, good influence. But I was influenced by him, and Satan, and immediately I repented. So I could understand from this David's thing that how it's easy to be deceived and compromise and be ruled by Satan and keep ready to Satan, and how difficult it is to come out of that, and it is it really in my heart, why did you do? And when I repented in the church and I shared that this is what I did wrong, and I was forgiven by God, and I feel relaxed, and the grace of God again is fresh in my heart. Yes, that is.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Especially for many of us who are, at workplace where our colleagues are not believers, our boss is not believer. The whole objective is to make money and get any benefit. It becomes very difficult. Yeah, but thank you for sharing that. Any day, God, when the day we realize I have made a mistake, that is the day of, salvation. That is the day of freedom and peace and joy restored to our life. Any day, yeah, God is always willing. सोलोमन भैया कुछ कहना चाहेंगे?
या पहली बात हम कह सकते हैं कि जैसे कि चैप्टर 27 के पहले ही बताया गया है कि डेविड बोल रहा है कि कैसे भी मैं शाऊल के हाथ से मरने वाला हूँ, या इसलिए मैं अच्छा है कि मैं वहाँ पे इसमें फिलिस्तीन के इधर में भाग जाऊँ, और वो डर की वजह से वहाँ पे वो चला गया है। और जैसे कि अकीश के बारे में अगर हम ये करेंगे तो अकीश को उसने दिखाया कि आपको मालूम है कि शाऊल मुझे मार रहा है या मारने का सोच रहा है, तो वो मेरा दुश्मन हो गया है, तो आपका भी वो दुश्मन है, तो दोनों का दुश्मन एक, तो हम दोस्त है, ये दिखाने का कोशिश उसने किया। और वहाँ पे उसके इधर उसने आसरा लिया। तीसरी बात ये भी कह सकते हैं कि परमेश्वर दाऊद के साथ था, क्योंकि हम देख सकते हैं कि जब डेविड ने उस आजू बाजू के राज्यों के ऊपर उसने वार किया, उसके साथ लड़ाई की, तो उसमें वो जीत गया है, और उसके जो 600 लोग हैं उसमें ही उसने वो पूरी जीत हासिल कर दी है। और उसके ऊपर हम कह सकते हैं कि उसमें उसने सक्सेस दिया है परमेश्वर ने दाऊद को, तो हम कह सकते हैं कि परमेश्वर उसके साथ था। और वो हम दूसरी बात ये भी कह सकते हैं कि दाऊद के साथ परमेश्वर, इसलिए हम कह सकते हैं कि अकीश हमेशा उसके ऊपर भरोसा करता था, दाऊद के ऊपर भरोसा करता, उसके लोग उसके ऊपर भरोसा नहीं करते थे, लेकिन मेन जो अकीश जो किंग था वो उसके ऊपर भरोसा करता था। तीसरी बात ये भी कह सकते कि दाऊद ने जो राज्य को जो डिस्ट्रॉय किया उसने, तो वो इजरायली तो है थे नहीं, लेकिन जो पहले बचे हुए थे उसमें से उन्होंने ये किया। लेकिन उसने अकीश को कहा कि दूसरे बारे में बताया, और उसके लिए उसने वहाँ पे कोई गवाह छोड़ा नहीं, क्योंकि वो अपने आप को भी ये सेफ करना चाहता था अकीश की नज़र में, और उसने वैसा किया। और हम कह सकते हैं कि परमेश्वर उसके साथ में था, इसलिए ये सब कुछ हुआ। बहुत बार ऐसा होता है कि हम सच कहने जाते हैं, सब सच करने को जाते हैं, लेकिन वो हर बार डाव उल्टा पड़ जाता है, और हम हमेशा मतलब ये होते कि हाँ ये ऐसा ही है, ये ऐसा ही रहेगा, तो उसमें भी हम सोच सकते हैं कि हम अगर सच बोलेंगे तो उसमें हम कह सकते हैं कि हम सच बोले तो शायद आगे वाला आदमी वो माने और उसके अनुसार हमें कुछ ये करे, लेकिन वैसा नहीं होता है। ये भी बात उसमें थी, इसलिए फिर दाऊद वहाँ पे झूठ बोल के गया या गलत इसमें से इंटेंशन से गया, लेकिन परमेश्वर उसके साथ था, उसको ये गार्ड कर रहा था। तो ये बात भी उसमें हम कह सकते हैं कि परमेश्वर उसके साथ था, और हमें मतलब जब वापस भी आया तभी भी परमेश्वर उसके साथ था। हम देखते हैं कि पूरे दाऊद के जीवन में कि बहुत जगह वो रॉन्ग गया है, बहुत जगह वो एक रॉन्ग उसने किया है, परमेश्वर के खिलाफ गया है। या हम अभी आपने बताया कि उसने जो आकीश के पास गया तो परमेश्वर को पूछा था क्या? उसने नहीं पूछा था, नहीं पूछा, लेकिन परमेश्वर ने भी कुछ उसको ये कि विरोध नहीं किया है। परमेश्वर ने उसे विरोध भी नहीं किया है कि हाँ वहाँ पे जाओ मत, या किसी को उसके पास भेज के नहीं बोला कि तू वहाँ पे जाओ मत, ऐसा भी नहीं है। परमेश्वर कह सकता था उसे।
I agree with you. God was with David in spite of his weaknesses, and God is with us in spite of our own weaknesses.
Amen. Amen.
God is with us in spite of our failures and our own compromises and fear. So God does not, desert us. God does not leave us alone. Leave us alone. And I agree with you that without God's help, he could not have, got victory every time he went and fought the battles. So God can use us even in our fear, compromised, and still when we are in weakness, God can still use us. That is God's greatness, really.
या
Um,
दूसरा बात एक पूछना था कि दाऊद ने एक जगह पे वो याजक के पास जाता है और जो पवित्र रोटी है वो उसने खाए हैं जब उसे बहुत भूख लगी और पवित्र रोटी उसने खाई और यीशु ने भी उसका ये किया है कि हाँ दाऊद ने कैसे भूख लगा तभी उसने पवित्र रोटी खाए तो क्या आप कहते हैं वो दाऊद ने रॉन्ग किया था या सही था
see, Daud was not wrong, and the priest gave him because Jesus himself made clear that life is more important than laws.
Yes.
The law is good and that is there, but human life is more important. So at that time, David's life was more important than obeying the law of that bread should be eaten by only priests. So Jesus himself made that clear that
Yes,
the Sabbath is for the man is not for Sabbath, or the bread was allowed. So, but the lies that he told to the priest, definitely that is not God's will. And for one single lie, the entire village got routed. The priests were killed by Samuel. So lies have consequences. Lies or ungodly things that we do have consequences.
Yes.
Think about it. I mean, just now it came to my mind. I'm sure God was with David when he went and finished the Israel's enemy, the Geshurites, the Girjasites, and the Amalekites.
Yes.
But see how it is written in the Bible. Okay, when God is with David and David is with God and they are going and fighting something, there is so much detail about that event.
Yes.
Right? Think about the previous passage. When God is with David, David is with God there, and they are doing something together, and God is pleased with that. The Holy Spirit wants to describe everything about that event.
Yeah.
But God is helping David, and David is doing something, but he's not in the will, and this is not how God wanted him to do it. But he did it. So it is just one sentence. He went and killed everybody, Geshurites, Girjasites. God is writing.
Just very short.
God is writing a book for each of our life. God is writing a book for each one of our life. One day, the book will be opened when we stand before the throne of God. Okay? There will be some events which Jesus will be very proud of to share with the Father. But there will be some events, they are the work of God, but that will be in one sentence or half a sentence. He did this one, finished.
Yes.
So, I mean, that is something going on here. I mean, even though it is the work of God, but it does not have much to bring joy, glory, or I mean, there is. I'm sure God was pleased, but there is not much glory to give to God. So, some of the events of our life will be. Can you stay 2 minutes? I want to give a testimony.
Yeah.
Okay. If you are busy, you can leave. Okay. So I feel free. And when in 2004, I started working as an assistant professor, and then 2007, God called me to a full-time ministry. And then I was in full-time ministry for around 2.5 years, till 2010 almost. And then I started searching job again, teaching job. So I was so afraid. I thought that, I mean, whichever interview I go, they will ask me, you work as an assistant professor for 2.5 years. Then what did you do for the last 3 years? So I was... So the first few interviews I went, I always used to say I was working for an NGO, I was doing some social work, I was doing this one, I was doing that one, and I would be the interviews would always end in misery, and I will be rejected. Ultimately, I'll be rejected. And then I was very frustrated. Okay, and then one more I had applied, and I was going for the interview. I'm sitting on an auto. And in my mind, the Holy Spirit started speaking to me and said, today, you tell the truth. And then I went to the interview and the same question came. Okay, you have a teaching experience of 2.5 years. After that, what did you do? And I said, I was a pastor for last 3 years. I was if I say full time, they will not understand. So I said, I was pastoring a church for last 3 years. I was teaching Bible. I was preaching gospel. And instead of they being upset, what kind of person you are, man? You are, your name looks like a Hindu. You are doing Christian activity. Instead of pointing out those kind of questions, they asked me, tell us, what did you do as a pastor? I said, and then God started giving me wisdom. And those were true. I said that I was involved with young people, because at that time I was teaching Bible and discipling young people. I said I was involved in young people's life. I was mentoring them, and I was helping them through the Bible. And I just said what I was doing. And to my surprise, as long as I was trying to manage through lies, I was always rejected, and miserably I would return. And that interview ended up so well, and they chose me, and I could restore. So that is one thing. And recently, so I mean, that is a past, so always we can think of past, what great thing I did. But let me tell you as a recent thing. I am waiting for my interview. My contract is due for renewal. So I have applied again. I'm waiting for my interviews. I had to submit my application form, and you have to mention the different organization you have worked for, how long, what position, and things like that. So again, this thought came, what should I write about it? For a moment, I thought I'll just skip it. But then I remembered that incident, the interview incident, and said, God, no, I'll not try to hide or lie. I wrote, I was a teaching pastor. I wrote, from this period to this period, I was a teaching pastor, and I submitted my application. So now if they ask me any question, I'll just have to tell what it was. It's better, man. I mean, otherwise I'll go to the interview full of worry and what to answer, how to answer, how should I justify. At least I have freedom in my heart. Okay, you ask me, okay, I was a teaching pastor, I will tell the same answer which I gave 10 years back, 10 or 11 years back. If you like me, take me. If you don't like me, it's okay, maybe God has other plan. But at least my heart is free. I'm not under fear and how to manage, what to tell. That is a grace of God. I mean, it's not me, it's God's help. So always the thing that I want to tell in the last moment is, always we need to remember our own testimonies, how God has delivered me in similar situations. Something that was against me, to make it in favor of me, so we can still have peace, still can be honest, still can maintain integrity of our life. And promises, God's promises. If God said I have to be in Judah, and God has anointed me to be the king, definitely nobody would be able to kill me. I mean, we need to remember God's calling, the prophecies that God has said, the promises that God has given. Because when you forget all these promises and we look at the situation looks so big, and God's promises we almost forget, or they look so small. So that is my last point, from this study and from our testimonies. Let us remember God's promises. Let us remember how God has already delivered me so many times, and He will continue to deliver me. He does not promise to make my life trouble-free, but He promises that there will be no harm, and He will provide for me, and He will take care of me in any situation. So it is better to be in the trouble with God rather than seemingly out of trouble without God. So that's my understanding from this study. Okay. Anyone want to say? Melody, you want to say something?
Yeah, I've just been reading a book that it's been a major focus has been, you need to have people who love you around you to help you make decisions. And so this today it caught me that, because I keep different aspects of the book I don't agree with, and I'm like, is that really how it is? And now as we are talking about why David was doing this, and did he get God's perspective? Did he ask for counsel? Did he get the priests to ask God his wisdom? It just reiterated to me how we can get in such a bind if we don't seek godly counsel, and the importance of, we do need to seek godly counsel. Otherwise we take things into our own minds, and our hearts are wicked. We want to do what benefits us. And so we need to have not just myself and my Bible, and I will make the decisions and ask God to bless it. And so it's just really, today's lesson for me just really reiterated the fact of, we do need the church. We do need one another. We need accountability. We need people to counsel us, to come beside us, we need to walk with each other in these different things that we face. And so it was, that's the biggest thing I got out of today.
Thank you. That's really good for us also to know. Really, we need people to be accountable of, who can help us, who can question our decisions, and make us rethink what we are thinking, and they can pray for us. That's really wonderful, and that is what the believer, we are part of the body. We are all different parts of the same body, so we need each other, and we support each other. So that's really a wonderful point. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I think time is up. We'll stop unless somebody has to say something. Sister Ramana?
Nothing. Thank you so much. We would like to sing for you for tomorrow. Tomorrow is
What is that?
It's the teacher's birthday tomorrow.
What to do?
Once.
Wow.
So let's sing for our teacher, Brother Abraham. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday
to you.
Happy
Happy birthday, dear Abraham.
You know the way.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. It's difficult to
Thank you
sing.
so much. Yeah.
Let's sing our blessings over you, Brother Abraham. May the good Lord bless you. May the good
God bless you.
May
God's precious blessings
rest
upon
you.
Amen.
And your
Amen.
family.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. God bless us all. See you next Saturday. Bye-bye. Enjoy the virtual cake.
Share.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See you. Acha, cha, cha.